Good day, friends. Today we will discuss report writing and we will discuss how you have to prepare a report for mortgage purpose, for sale purpose, for purchase purpose, and for many other purposes as per the syllabus of IBBI. So, whenever a valuer has to do valuation, he has to represent his findings and his conclusion about the property's worth in a format which is called valuation report. So as far as syllabus is concerned, you have to learn report writing and then what should be the quality of your report, what should be the structure of your report, what should be the style of your report, and then what you have to mention in the report for various purposes such as sale, purchase, mortgage, taxation, insurance, liquidation, etc. Then what should be the contents of your report, instructions of client's date as on which valuation is made and date of report, site inspection, location, ownership history, data collection and analysis, type of construction, valuation methods, value estimation, assumptions and limiting conditions, including caveats and conclusions. So weightage, as far weightage is concerned, weightage is 3%. So first we'll discuss what is property valuation report. So property valuation report is a detailed document. It is a detailed document that provides an estimate of the property's market value based on various factors such as its location, size, condition, and comparable sales in the area. The report is essential for determining the property's worth in the current market and plays a significant role in financial transactions like a loan against property. So, importance of property valuation. So, the importance of property valuation cannot be overstated, especially when it comes to securing a loan against property. Lender rely upon accurate property valuation to assess the loan amount and the terms they can offer to the borrower. For property owners, comprehensive valuation report helps in understanding their property's market value, which can be beneficial for making informed decisions about selling, buying, or leveraging the property for loans. So now we will discuss what should be the quality of your report. First thing, it is its accuracy. So accuracy comes from the when your valuation report is based on verifiable data. So the report must be precise and based on verifiable data. For example, using the most recent market prices for properties to ensure accurate valuation figures. Then your report should be transparent. So from where the transparency comes, you should see all the assumptions, methodologies, and source of data should be clearly stated. For example, stating the source of market data and the methodology used for calculation. Then your report should be reliable. So, as far as reliability is concerned, your report should be consistent and provide dependable results. For example, consistently applying the same valuation technique to similar property. Then compliance. So adheres to the relevant standards and regulations. Following the international valuation standards or the local regulatory guideline as the case may be. Then what should be the structure of your report? First thing is title page. It includes the title, date, and valuer's name. For example, valuation report for commercial property at 123 Market Street dated 20th October 2024 prepared by XYZ valuers. Then executive summary. A concise summary of key findings and recommendations should be mentioned in the form of a summary. So, summarizing the property's market value, key factors influencing the valuation, and any significant assumptions or limitations. Introductions. In the introduction, you should outline the purpose, scope, and methodology of the valuation. For example, explaining that the report aims to determine the market value for mortgage purpose using the sales comparison approach. Next is property description. So you should mention the description, detailed information of the property being valued in your valuation report, including the details such as location, size, zoning, and various relevant physical features or characteristics. Then market analysis. So you should mention the market conditions that are affecting the property's value. For example, analyzing recent sales of comparable properties, economic trends, and supply and demand factors. Valuation methodology. Explanation of the methods used to determine the value. You should mention the which valuation methodology you have used, which method you have used to determine the value of the property. For example, explaining or describing the cost approach, income approach, and sales comparison approach, and then rationale for using each. Then valuation calculations. So you should provide detailed calculation supporting the final valuation. For example, showing the step-by-step calculation process, including adjustment for the differences between the subject property and comparable. And in the end, you should provide conclusion about the final estimated value and any recommendations you want to make. For example, providing the final estimated market value and suggesting possible actions based on the valuation. Then in the end, you should provide supporting documents and additional information in the form of appendices, for example, including photographs, maps, and copies of relevant documents. Then, what should be the style of your valuation report? First thing in your report should be clarity. So, the report should be written in a clear and understandable language. For example, you should avoid jargon and explaining technical terms only when these are necessary. Then, conciseness. The your report should mention the information in a consistent manner without any unnecessary detail. For example, summarizing the key points and avoiding lengthy descriptions that do not add value. Then next is professional tone, maintaining a formal and objective tone throughout the report. For example, using neutral language and avoiding subjective opinions. And then you can have visual aids in your report, such as utilizing charts, graphs, and tables to present the data clearly. For example, including a graph to show the trends or table to compare recent sales of similar properties. Now, writing a valuation report requires a tailored approach depending upon the purpose. So, each report is different. It depends upon the purpose for which the report is to be made. For example, if you are making a valuation report for sale, then in the purpose you should mention that the purpose is to determine the market value of the property or asset for sale. Here, asset for sale. In the executive summary, you should mention brief overview of the asset and estimated market value. In the property description, you should mention detailed description of the asset, including conditions and location of the property. Then in the market analysis, you should mention the current market conditions and comparable sales. In the valuation methodology, you should explain the method you have used to determine the value of the asset. And in the conclusion, you should mention final estimated market value and any recommendation you want to make for the sale. If you are doing valuation for the purpose of purchase, in the purpose you should mention to assess the fair value of the property or asset being considered for purchase. So if someone has approached you to make valuation report for purchase, so you should mention in the purpose this thing. In the executive summary, you should mention overview of the asset and the suggested purchase price. Here it was estimated market value, and in the property description executive summary you have listed estimated market value, but here if you are making valuation for purchase you should mention suggested purchase price. In the market analysis you should represent analysis of comparable sales and market trends. Then in the valuation methodology, explanation of the valuation method you have used, and in the conclusion you should mention recommended purchase price and any conclusion. If you are doing valuation for the mortgage, then you should mention in the purpose is to determine the value of property for securing a loan. So in the executive summary, you should mention the overview of the property and its estimated value. In the property description, you should make the detailed description of the property, including any encumbrances on the property. In the market analysis, you should mention analysis of the market conditions and comparable properties. In the valuation methodology, you should explain the methods used to determine the value of the property. And in the conclusion, you should mention final estimated value for mortgage purposes. If you are doing valuation for taxation, you should mention to assess the value of the property for tax purposes. In the executive summary, you should mention overview of the property and its assessed value. In the property description, you should give the detailed description of the property. In the market analysis portion, you should give analysis of comparable properties and market conditions. In valuation methodology, you should explain the method you have used to determine the value of the property for taxation purposes. And in the conclusion, you should mention the assessed value for taxation purposes. If you are doing valuation for insurance, in the purpose you should mention that your purpose is to determine the replacement value of the property for insurance coverage. So in the case of insurance, generally replacement value of the property is used. In the executive summary, you should give overview of the property and its replacement value. In the property description, you should mention the detailed description of the property, including its condition, its present conditions. In the market analysis portion, you should mention analysis of replacement cost and market trends. See here, analysis of replacement cost. Then you should mention the methodology you have used to determine the replacement value in the valuation methodology portion. And in the end, in the conclusion, you should give the replacement value for insurance coverage. Next is if you are doing valuation for liquidation purpose, here your purpose is to determine the value of the asset for selling off in a liquidation scenario. So in the asset description portion, you should give the detailed description of the assets including their condition. In the market analysis portion, you should mention the present market conditions and comparable liquidation sales. In the valuation methodology portion, you should explain the method you have used to find the liquidation value. And in the end, in the conclusion, you should mention the estimated liquidation value and recommended recommendations for sale. So It means your valuation report must convey at least the following at a minimum. First, agreed scope of the work, assets and liabilities being valued, identity of the valuer, identity and description of the client, its intended use, then intended users if applicable, then valuation currencies used, then valuation dates and basis of value adopted, then valuation approaches adopted, valuation methods or valuation models applied, sources and selection of significant data and inputs, significant environmental, social governance factors used and considered, then significant assumptions are any limiting conditions, then findings of a specialist or service organizations such as structural expert. If you, as you are not an so structural expert, you have provided your valuation report just on inspection, visual inspection, and if you think that you required detailed description about the structural aspect of the property, then you may take the help of a structural expert and mention his report along with your valuation report. Then value and rationale for the valuation, then IVS compliance statement or local RVO standards. If you have used, then you should make a compliance statement about that in your valuation report, and the date of the report which may be different from the valuation date. So now we will take a brief explanation of these things. First is instructions of the client. So what does this mean? So details of the client's requirements and the purpose of the valuation should be mentioned in your valuation report. For example, the client has requested a valuation of the residential property located at 123 Main Street, and the purpose is for securing a mortgage. Date as on which the valuation made and date of report. So you have to mention the specific date of valuation is waste and on the date the report is finalized. For example, valuation date is 1st October 2024 and report date is 5th October 2024. Then site inspection, you should give the details about the detailed account of the site you have visited, including the observations you have made and the conditions you have noted about the property. For example, you have mentioned site inspection was conducted on 1st October 2024. The property was found to be in good condition with no visible structural damages as on date. Next is location. So you should mention the geographical location of the property along with the surroundings or boundaries of the property. For example, the property is located in a prime residential area with access to public transport, schools, and shopping sectors, etc. Then, for ownership history, you should mention the details of the previous and current ownership of the property if you have data about that. So, for example, the property was purchased by the current owner, Mr. Vijay Goyal, on 15th January 2010. Prior to this, it was owned by XYZ Reality. Then data collection and analysis. So you should mention the methods and sources used to collect the data and analysis you have performed in about that data. So, for example, data collected from local real estate listings, government land records, and recent sales of comparable properties. Then, type of construction. So, you should give the details about the construction type, material used, and property's physical attributes. For example, the property is a single family detached house constructed with brick and mortar, featuring a tiled roof and wooden flooring, etc. means you should mention the specifications used for the in the construction of the property. Then in about the valuation approach method, you have to give the approach or methodology you have used to determine the property's value. For example, sales comparison approach. If you have used sales comparison approach, you should mention comparing the sale subject property with the similar recently sold properties in the vicinity of the area. Then valuation estimation. So you should give the detail about the calculated value of the property based upon chosen valuation method. For example, estimated market value of the property is, let us suppose, 75 lakh. Then you should mention assumptions and limiting conditions. So any assumptions made during the valuation and conditions that may limit the accuracy or applicability of the report should be mentioned. So you may mention the valuation assumes no significant change in the local real estate market conditions. The report is subject to the accuracy of the provided data. And in the conclusion, you can mention you should summarize the key findings and provides the final recommendations. For example, based upon the analysis and data collected, it is concluded that property market value is rupees 75 lakh. It is recommended for mortgage purposes at this value. Then assumptions and limiting conditions, including caveats. First, you may mention the assumptions about the accuracy of the information. So basically, you have collected the information from different sources. You assume that these sources to be reliable. So you may mention that the evaluation assume that all the information provided by the client, including property details, ownership history, and financial data, is accurate and complete. For example, if the client provide information about the property size and condition, it is assumed to be correct without independent verification. Then market condition. The valuation assumes stable market condition unless otherwise specified. For example, the value estimated is based upon the current real estate market without anticipating significant fluctuation or economic changes within a short span. Then legal status. The property is assumed to have a clear title. This is important. So you are this thing is to be checked by the LSR legal search in the legal search report, but you have to mention that you assume that the property have a clear title and comply with all relevant laws and regulations. For example, property is assumed to be free from legal disputes, encumbrances, or zoning issues. Then about the physical conditions, you may mention that the physical condition of the property as observed during the site condition, assumed to be as observed during the site inspection. For example, the valuation assumes no hidden structural damages or defects that were not visible during visual inspection. Then limiting conditions and caveats, you may mention scope of inspection. The valuation is based on limited physical inspection and does not involve invasive invasive testing or surveys. So then, for example, you may mention the inspection was visual only and no in-depth structural survey was conducted. So as you are not a structural expert, you may mention this thing. Then about the third party information, you may mention data obtained from third parties assumed to be reliable, but the valuer is not responsible for its accuracy. For example, market data from real estate agents and public records are assumed accurate. Then future changes. Valuation does not account for any future changes in the market conditions, laws, or the property's physical state. For example, potential future development in the area or changes in the zoning law are not considered in the valuation report. Then use of report. You may mention the report is intended solely for the stated purpose and should not be used for purpose other than mentioned in the valuation report without the valuer's consent. For example, the valuation for mortgage purpose should not be used for insurance or litigation purposes without further review. And in the conclusion, you should mention that based upon the analysis and data collected, the estimated market value of the property as of valuation date is rupees 75 lakh. So you may give some recommendation that it is recommended that client uses this valuation for the specified purpose such as securing mortgage or sale. In the final note, you may mention that value is subject to the assumptions and limiting conditions outlined in this report. The client should review these carefully before making any decision based on this valuation. These sections ensures that valuation report is comprehensive, transparent, and useful for its intended users, while clearly obtaining the boundaries and conditions under which the valuation was conducted. So this is all about value report writing, and we have tried to cover all parts of the syllabus as far as IBBA syllabus is concerned, along with other things which are necessary for day-to-day valuations. So please like, share, and comment on the video. Subscribe our valuation this channel. Subscribe our channel www.youtube.com @valuesclubs07 for more educational videos on valuation and other related valuation videos. You may check this YouTube channel. All these videos are free of cost, and if you want to have valuation formats, so you may visit our website cev.ceviaf.org. Then in that you go to home. In the homes there is a section forms. In this forms you go to section 3, and in there is a section RV for registered values, which contains a number of valuation report samples. You can use these samples as per your requirements. So if you have any suggestion, please comment. Your suggestions are most welcome. Thank you. Have a nice day.